Hi, welcome back to the South Texas Youth Soccer Academy and Grassroots curriculum that we've released for the spring of 2016. This week is week 4, and the topic for this week is passing and receiving. For this week, I'll be going over activities that build on the topic of week 3, which was passing. Let's get to the activities. All right, let's get these little diagrams out of the way so we can make room to go over the activities. Okay. The first activity is simply a passing receiving circle or grid. I'll go over the objectives, the description, the actual structure of the activity, and also the coaching points. So, to begin, the objective is to improve a player's ability to pass and receive the ball using different surfaces of their body and both feet. The description, players pick a partner, and although once the activity has started, players will move around the space and they will pass to other perimeter players. Sometimes the younger players have a bit of a hang-up with passing with other people other than their partner, so it may take the coach's demonstration to get them to understand that although they start with their partner, once the activity has started, they will pass to other players in the grid. So, player A starts with the ball in the middle of the grid, and then their partner starts in the perimeter of the grid without a ball. At the start of the activity, the players in the middle with the ball will dribble, and then they will pass the ball to a player that's on the outside. Once the player on the outside receives the ball, they must dribble into the middle of the space and then connect a pass to a different player on the outside and then repeat. So basically, you look up and you find somebody who is available on the outside, you play them the ball, they take a dribble and come into the grid, and you go on the outside. This activity repeats itself for a total duration of 1 minute at a time and with 1 minute rest, as the intensity is pretty high for this activity. Let's go over a couple of variations that you may want to use. So, I've seen coaches use a circle for this activity or a square. I've also seen coaches use a marker so that the outside players know where to stay. But there's lots of variations that you can use. For example, for one of the intervals, you can have players use their right foot or they can use their weak foot for passing. The players on the inside could play a combination pass with the player on the outside before switching places, like a give and go. Or 3, players can execute a turn or a particular move that you'd like them to experiment with before passing upon receiving the ball. I always like to do sessions where the players can make up their own decisions, other than me dictating which move it might be. But I may ask somebody to show some move that they like the scissors, and then suggest that when they come to the middle, they execute that move before going to the opposite side of the square and then passing to an outside player. Let's go over the coaching points. There are many coaching points that are relevant to passing and receiving in this activity. Some of them are also psychosocial. For example, players must learn how to communicate with their partner or the person that they're passing to. They have to learn how to make eye contact or verbal communication, such as a signal, or even know their teammates' names. You do use this activity to emphasize proper passing technique, such as head down, ankle locked, the plant foot, the surface that you're using for a push pass, and how to do that. Number 3, they must get their body in line with the pass. You'll see that some players may get frustrated because their pass goes beyond their partner and they're constantly having to go retrieve that ball. So that's a good point to emphasize how to be accurate and how to hit the target that you're aiming for. Part of that also might be, number 4, making sure players understand the proper weight and speed that must be used. The receiving player should take a dynamic touch away from pressure once they receive the ball into space. This is a great point to talk about in receiving, as we don't want players to receive the ball and kill it or have the ball stop moving. The ball should always be moving in this activity, and if the receiving player can look at the angle that their partner is coming from, then they can take a dynamic touch at an angle away into space and accelerate into the grid. And again, we always want to play as quickly as our technique will allow. Obviously, the closer we can get to game-like, the better this activity will prepare us for the future. Let's move on to the next activity. Get this one out of the way, and we'll get this out of the way. So, the second activity is a small-sided game. I really like it. It can be a lot of fun for the players to be involved. We'll go over the structure of it very briefly. So, the objective of this activity is to improve a player's ability to pass and receive the ball using different surfaces of their body and both feet. The description of this activity is that it's 3v2 to goal. The estimated width and length would be 30 yards long by 20 yards wide. All this need to be adjusted based on the age and ability of your players. You can use an actual goal with a goalkeeper, or you could use gates, or you could use 2 gates, or you could even use an inline if you wanted to set up this activity. So the scoring system is created by the coach. Once the players are a bit more mature, you could ask them for the input. But an example would be that one-touch pass that connects with a teammate is 3 points bonus. Any combination such as a give and go or an overlap would be maybe 5 points. But remember that we always want to emphasize the goal as the objective of the game. So anytime they're able to score regardless of the passing or regardless of the combinations, we always want to give them a point. Be careful not to require them to make a combination or not to require them to make a one-touch pass, because we always want to allow players to be creative and to read the game as it's presented to them. If you're going to use a combination, just a quick note for your U10 or U12 players, be sure to introduce combinations in warm-up if you're planning on doing this. Rotate the players each interval and make sure all players have opportunities to be both the attacking and the defending players during the activity. I have this activity designed for the U5 to U12-year-old. Again, it's for 7v7, although it could also be used for larger numbers or smaller numbers. You do want to have 8 cones, 8 bibs of 2 colors. You want to have a goalkeeper, if applicable, if you have a big goal, and either that or goals or gates. It's a moderate intensity activity. We'll be playing this small-sided activity for 20 minutes, so we're going to play 5 intervals of 3 minutes each, and then 1 minute of rest. Let's talk about the coaching points. I like to have my coaching points written down as guided questions. I feel like it helps me prepare for the session and what kind of things might happen. So I've written some guided questions that might be presented in this activity, which you could use with your players. So, for example, number 1, you can ask your players or look for moments of asking them, what do you do when there's space in front of you and the defender? So the answer would be, you take your space either through the dribble, a pass, or shot. So if you have time, take it. What do you do when you have space and the ball? Take space either through a dribble penetration at speed or a shot or a pass. The next question might be, what do you do when your teammate has space and the ball? Where can you move to help them? So, for example, if your teammate has the ball but they have plenty of space, it might not be the best time to run to them to try to bring a defender into the space or to maybe even take the ball yourself. All right. Another question, what do you do when pressure is high and you have the ball? You look to get into the space behind the defender. So, for example, pressure is high here, so we would want to ask them about how they can get into the space behind the defender. That's always a nice question, and how can they do that? The answer to that would be, of course, either they can either execute a dribbling move, they can pass to a teammate, they can combine with a teammate like a wall pass to get into the space behind, and then the follow-up question would be, what surface of the foot should you use to make that combination pass? Or what dribble move can you make to get into the space behind? Or where do you want your first touch to go when you receive the ball? What part of your foot should you use? Those would be the coaching points that I would suggest for this activity. And again, I think it's relevant to be able to create ample opportunities for passing and receiving. Let's go to the last activity. The last activity expands on activity 2, and it is a 5v5 game. This is a great game to build on the second activity, the smaller-sided game. In this activity, we're going to continue to work on the objective of improving a player's ability to pass and receive the ball using different surfaces of their body and both feet. This is a 5v5 game to goal with goalkeepers. There's actually 2 goals. The approximate length would be 40 yards long by 30 yards wide. You do need to have 2 goals for this activity. So for the scoring, it depends on the number of passes. So for example, every pass made before a goal is scored counts as a point. So the number of passes that they've completed equals the number of points that their goal would count for. So for example, if the blue team is able to connect 3 passes and then they score, then that goal would be worth 3 points. If the red team was able to connect 7 passes and then they score, their goal is worth 7 points. Please be sure that you should always count 1 point for any goal that is scored regardless of the number of passes that are completed. We always want to make sure players are playing in an environment that is realistic to what the game is, and we always want to encourage players to be creative and take shots. For this activity, it's made for, obviously, again, U5 through U12. The numbers I have are 7v7. I would probably have a couple players that are out. I'd be really conscious about making sure that everybody gets ample opportunity to play in this game. You do need cones for the exterior. You'll need bibs of 2 colors. You might need bibs for the goalkeepers to be different for safety, and 2 goals. If you don't have 2 actual goals, you could use sticks or cones or a smaller goal. The intensity of this is moderate, and I'd play this activity for 20 minutes. I'd play 2 8-minute quarters or 8-minute halves with 2 minutes rest in between for water. And the coaching points would be the tactics now of how to move into a supporting position to a teammate as the ball is passed to one of the teammates, including with depth penetration, and then also changing that position and being able to make runs or having more ability on the field to be able to provide passing, shooting, and other penetration option for teammates. Obviously, we would still continue coaching the technical aspects of passing and receiving and taking space and to combine and to be able to improve our attack to be able to score goals. For the last phase of this practice, I would simply remove all of the passing restrictions or incentives and just allow the players to play. If the space is large enough, you could add another player and actually play 6v6 or 7v7 if the space permits it, with no conditions other than exactly like the game. We hope you're enjoying the activities that we have been releasing for this curriculum. Please look for more information each Tuesday in your email. And if you have suggestions for us about what activities or topics you'd like to see, please feel free to email us with your suggestions. Our email again is janaeb@stxsoccer.org. That's my email, and I'll be able to pass the information along or to add content to what you see that you think you need for your programs. Thank you again for following us, and look for a release next Tuesday. Good luck with your games this week, and as always, have fun.